All right, Behind the Bedroom Wall, Chapter 13. Last night, much later, Corinna heard the soft tread of feet coming up the stairs, and though she had been warned earlier, her heart started to thump anyway. Silently, her door swung open, and two dark figures entered her room. "Papa?" she called softly. "Yes, Corinna, it's me. This is Herr Krugman," her father said. Corinna could see the second man nod to her through the darkness. "Guten Abend," she said. Her father pulled the wardrobe away from the wall. "Sophie," he called into the dark hole. "Sophie, wake up." "Burned? What is it? What's happened? Are the Gestapo here?" Her voice, even in a whisper, sounded shrill and full of fear. "No, Sophie, don't worry. I have a surprise for you. Look who's here." "Who? I can't see. Who is it?" Her voice still sounded nervous. "Papa?" queried a small voice. "Papa!" Rachel exclaimed. "Shh!" Corinna's father warned. "So?" Sophie said, sounding incredulous. "Rachel, get back here," she said to her daughter, who had jumped out of the hole and was standing in Corinna's room. "It's all right," Ephraim said. "She can come out. You can come out, too. Just be quiet." Herr Krugman picked up his daughter and hugged her tight. My little Rachel," he said, emotion strangling his voice and making it sound gruff. Gently, he set her back on the floor. By this time, Frau Krugman also stood in Corinna's room, staring up at her husband. Herr Krugman pulled his wife into his arms. "Oh, Sophie, how I have missed you." Corinna looked down at her tightly clasped hands, embarrassed to be witnessing such a scene. She felt like an intruder in her own bedroom, but she couldn't very well slip out of her small room unnoticed with all these people filling it. She peeked up to see Herr Krugman pick up Rachel again. The three of them huddled together with their arms around each other. "Now, you must all hide again," Ephraim said. "It will be even more cramped for you, but we'll try to move you on as soon as possible. Your next stop has opened up and is waiting for you. Now it's just a matter of getting you there safely." Herr Krugman gripped Corinna's father's hand as Rachel and Frau Krugman crawled through the wall out of view. "Thank you for everything," he said, his voice catching in his throat. "I am so thankful for you." "We do what we can, and we wish it were more," Corinna's father said. They stood a moment in silence, each one thinking his own thoughts. Then Herr Krugman crouched and crawled behind the wall. Corinna's father closed the wardrobe and turned to his daughter. "Go to sleep now." He hugged Corinna, and she wanted to cling to him when he released her, but she didn't. She withdrew into her pillows and watched the dark image of her father leave her room. She closed her eyes and heard the soft rustling and whispering coming from behind her wardrobe. She realized her father hadn't closed the wardrobe completely against the wall. She waited for the noises to quiet down, but soon realized they wouldn't. The Krugmans hadn't seen each other for weeks, and for who knows how long before they had come here. Corinna slipped out of bed and quietly tiptoed out of her room. She stood in the doorway of her parents' bedroom and listened to their even breathing. The floor was cold on her feet. Silently, she crawled onto her parents' bed and nestled in the warm and secure valley between her mother and father. And there she finally fell asleep. The next morning, Corinna walked to school alone. Rita hadn't waited for her as she usually did, which was fine with Corinna. She wasn't in the mood for Rita anyway. She got to school just before the first lesson started, so she slipped into her chair and looked over to Eva. Usually, Eva would look back at her and they would smile good morning to each other as if they hadn't walked to school together. But this morning, Eva didn't even glance in her direction. Corinna shrugged and turned her attention to the teacher. When school was out at 1, she found Eva and Rita and a few other girls huddled outside the big doors. They were all going straight to the meeting instead of home for dinner because they had much to prepare for the Führer's visit. The group broke up as Corinna advanced. "Hello," Corinna said. "Heil Hitler," Rita said. Eva avoided her glance and kept her eyes on the cement sidewalk. "Are you going to the Humano meeting?" Rita asked. "I'm wearing my uniform, aren't I?" "I was just asking," Rita said. "I thought you'd be too tired or too sick or something." Corinna looked at Eva, but Eva was still examining the sidewalk. She held her growing anger in check. "I'm fine. I've been for days now." "You've been acting strange, if you ask me," Rita said. Corinna felt the blood drain out of her face. Why was Rita acting this way? Why wouldn't Eva look at her? What was going on? "And you look terrible," Rita continued. "You have big bags under your eyes. Don't you sleep at night, or is something keeping you awake?" "Let's go to the meeting," Eva said, interrupting. "We don't want to be late." She started walking away from the two best friends. Corinna turned from Rita and followed Eva. Rita quickly caught up and passed Corinna so that she could walk beside Eva. Corinna stared at their backs. A warm front had moved into the area the night before, and the piles of snow were turning to slush. People walked with their coats unbuttoned and a spring in their steps. Corinna watched Rita's and Eva's open coats whip behind them in the wind as they walked. She walked stiffly, well aware of the surreptitious glances she was getting from the other girls on their way to the meeting. A memory came back to Corinna as she walked. She felt as if she were no longer in her body, but watching the scene from a different angle. That's because she had viewed this scene from a different angle before, she realized. She remembered the day Anita Scheinman had been ostracized from her friends for being a Jew. Corinna now remembered that she had been one of the ringleaders to plan Anita's humiliation, and that's how she knew so positively that the same thing was now happening to her. The Jumado meeting passed much the same way the walk from school had passed. No one talked directly to her, but everyone watched her. More than once she almost ran out of the room, but pressing her lips together to keep them from trembling, she had lifted her chin and stayed. Whatever was going on, she reassured herself, would be cleared up and things would go back to the way they were. Rita, Corinna said when she found her friend alone in the back of the room, what's going on? Why are you ignoring me? Rita looked around. Nothing's going on. Corinna placed a hand on her best friend's arm. What do you mean, nothing? No one will speak to me, even you, my best friend. She hated the quaver she heard in her voice. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just busy, Rita said resentfully. We have a lot to do before the parade, and if you don't care, I do. Of course I see, you can't even say it, Corinna Ream. You don't even care that our beloved Führer is coming to this city. But I do. You don't show it, Rita said, practically spitting out the words as she walked away. When the meeting ended, Corinna didn't bother waiting to be humiliated further. She simply put on her coat and left. Outside, the air was cooling down, but Corinna didn't button up her coat. She didn't care if she caught pneumonia. She just didn't care. Maybe she'd be better off like Ruth, she thought bitterly. Then all those awful girls, especially Rita, would be sorry for how they treated her. That was a stupid, childish way to think, thought Corinna quickly, and immediately she regretted it. She knew Ruth would rather be alive today, even if it meant hiding in a hole. Corinna, don't stop and don't turn around. Corinna recognized the voice. It was Eva. She started to turn around. I said, don't turn around. Keep walking. Eva's voice sounded hoarse, but then Corinna realized it was because she was trying to whisper loud enough to be heard by Corinna, but not by anyone else. What are you doing? What's going on? Corinna, too, kept her voice down. I don't have time to explain, Eva whispered, but I have to warn you. Your house is going to be searched tonight. Corinna felt weak with fear. She hadn't wanted to think that it could happen again, but she'd known there must have been some terrible reason for the way she'd been treated today. Now she knew. Somehow the Gestapo had found out about the Krugmans. How do you know? Just believe me, Eva said urgently. Why are you telling me this? Because you're my friend, Corinna. Bye. Eva, wait, Corinna said frantically. She wanted to know more, but there was no reply. She turned around. Eva was gone. Corinna broke into a run, but just as quickly she stopped. If anyone saw her running home, it would look suspicious. If her house were going to be searched tonight, that meant the Gestapo weren't sure the Reams were doing something wrong. If they knew about the Krugmans, definitely, Corinna didn't think they'd wait until dark to search the house. They'd do it immediately to keep the Jews from escaping. She didn't run, but she walked quickly. She saw no one except for a few soldiers, but they were so common it was as if they weren't even there. She also saw a small family of 3 riding past her on their bikes. They all ignored her except the little girl sitting behind the father, who stared and waved. Corinna absently waved back. Finally, she was home. She burst through the front door calling, Mother, Mother, are you home? Corinna! Her mother came running to her from the kitchen. How are you? I've been worried sick about you. I would have come out to get you, but Papa wouldn't let me. He said, Calm down, Helga, Corinna's father said, interrupting his wife as he joined them in the front hall. He took his distraught wife into his arms and hugged her. Corinna's home now. Everything is going to be fine. Frau Ream took a breath. I'm better now. I was just so worried, but now we're all home safe. Then you know, Corinna said, looking at her parents. Know what? Her father asked. About the search. We're going to be searched tonight. Eva told me. Are you sure? Her mother said sharply. I have to go warn the Krugmans. We have to hide them, Papa. What if the Gestapo finds them? It's okay, Corinna, began her father, but Corinna interrupted him. I have to tell them, she cried, moving toward the stairs. She knew she sounded panicky, but she couldn't control herself. She had to tell them now before it was too late. Corinna, stop, her father commanded firmly, holding her gently in his arms. They're gone, he said, staring down into his daughter's eyes. Gone? You may have even passed them on the street, her mother said softly. Tears welled up in Corinna's eyes. You mean the Gestapo already found them? Are they going to shoot the Krugmans? Are we going to jail? No, no, said her father gently, still holding her. No police have been here yet. The Krugmans have escaped. They're on their way to their next hiding place. Corinna was confused. But you said I may have passed them on the street. How could that be? It's still a little light out. Let's go sit down and I'll make tea, Corinna's mother said, leading them into the kitchen. While her mother heated the water, her father explained what had happened. When I got to school this morning, I was let go. I was told I was no longer wanted as a teacher, so I came home. I knew immediately it was because I was under suspicion for something and that I was probably being watched. On my way home, I stopped by the tailor's to pick up a shirt he was mending, and then I came home. You see, the tailor is a friend, and he sent a message. This afternoon, 3 people came to visit. They came noisily and happily because we hadn't seen each other for such a long time. They stayed for an hour, and then they left as they came, out the front door. But what does this have to do with the Krugmans? Corinna asked, trying to hold back her tears. The 3 who came to visit were of the approximate age and size of the Krugmans. When they were here, they traded clothes with the Krugmans, and it was the Krugmans who left by the front door and pedaled away on their bicycles, not the others. Stunned, Corinna realized it could have been Rachel waving to her from the back of the bicycle as her father pedaled past. So those others are still here? Are they hiding upstairs? They went out the back way, Frau Rehm said, bringing over hot cups of weak tea to the table where Corinna and her father were sitting. If anyone was watching the front, the same people who came in left. Nothing suspicious there. And if anyone was watching the back alley, 3 people left, all of them staunch supporters of Hitler. Even if they are stopped and questioned, they will be safe. No longer could she hold back her tears. Corinna, everything has worked out. Everyone is safe, her mother said, trying to console her daughter. There's no reason for tears. But they must think I hate them, Corinna cried. I'm sure they don't think that, her father soothed, stroking her back. They saw how you cared for Rachel, Corinna. They knew how you felt, her mother said. But I never even hugged her. I never told her I cared. She knew, Liebling, she knew. The family sat silent for a few minutes. I fear it is not safe for us here, her father said quietly. Corinna's heart thudded painfully, but the Krugmans are gone. Arim shook his head. If the Gestapo finds the hidden room, they'll know what we did to help Jews, even though the Krugmans are safely away. What will we do? Her mother covered her hands with one of hers. We will have to leave as soon as possible. She glanced at her husband. Tonight? He nodded slowly. As soon as it's dark, if the Gestapo doesn't come first. He turned to his daughter. Go upstairs and rest now, Liebling. Corinna rose on trembling legs. It was hard to believe that little Rachel wasn't waiting for her behind her bedroom wall, and that Sophie, with her suspicious eyes, and Herr Krugman weren't there, and that Ruth was gone. Her room didn't look any different, but it felt empty, silent, lonely. She would never forget them. She bowed fiercely as she retrieved Rachel's drawings from under her mattress. She would not forget what they looked like. She would never forget. Roughly, she wiped the tears from her eyes. If the Gestapo were coming tonight, perhaps any minute, she had a lot of work to do. She could rest later. Holding the packet of Rachel's drawings, she looked around the room for a suitable hiding place. She didn't want anyone to find them. After she'd hidden the drawings, she picked up the packet of Jumago pamphlets she had received last week. She opened one and looked through it. She felt as if she had aged years since she had first held these pamphlets in her hands. Then the shiny paper and the photograph of Adolf Hitler on the front had so impressed her. Now they just made her palms sweat. But they would do, she thought, standing up for what she wanted. They would do perfectly. All right, your turn. Complete sentences or video yourself answering them or something like that. 1, what has happened to Corinna's and Rita's relationship? 2, what has happened to the Krugmans? 3, what do you think will happen to Corinna's family?